All right, let's jump right in. The initial 53-man roster just landed, and the quick take is, the Chiefs built this version with flexibility, playmakers, and a clear short-term plan in mind, but there are also some eyebrow-raising choices that deserve unpacking. To start, the quarterback room is exactly what you'd expect. Patrick Mahomes and Gardner Minshew are the two guys getting the job done, and the team moved on from the young arms who were trying to stick. That's stability at the most. Important spot, and it sets the tone for how the front office thinks about roster security. In the backfield, 4 running backs made the cut: Pacheco, Hunt, Elijah Mitchell, and Bashard Smith, who flashed in camp, and you can breathe a little easier seeing depth there. Special teams and pass-catching value clearly mattered in those choices. The coaches favored guys who move the chains and don't put the ball on the ground. Speaking of pass catchers, the Chiefs kept 8 receivers on the initial 53, which signals 2 things. 1, they believe in the depth and upside of this receiving core, and 2, they're planning for an absence up top. More on that in a second. The names you saw on the list read like a mix of speed, slot savvy, and developmental upside, a true rotation built for game planning variety. At tight end, the trio remains solid with Kelsey leading the charge and reliable pieces behind him. The staff kept players who can block and contribute in the passing game, which tells you how they envision third down looks and red zone packages. The offensive line numbers are encouraging too. 10 linemen that give you starters and multi-role backups who can move around if injuries pop up. That kind of insurance is huge for a team that wants to keep Mahomes upright and the run game consistent. On defense, the defensive line group leans on proven names, plus a few younger guys who earned reps in the preseason. If you're watching for rotational impact, that's where you'll want to focus early in the year. Linebacker depth looks competent. The starters are established and special teams performers made their case, which is often the deciding factor for those middle roster spots. In the secondary, the Chiefs chose to roster 5 corners and a 3 safety look that gives their defensive coordinator the personnel to mix coverages and disguised pressures. That's a nod to the schemes we saw in camp and preseason. Specialists? No surprises. The kicking and, snapping game is steady, which is non-negotiable when every point matters. Now, before I move on, I want to hear from you. Which single roster decision surprised you the most and why? Drop that in the comments. Keep it short and sharp. Also, quick poll for this part of the show. Was keeping 8 receivers the right move? Vote in the comments with yes or no. If you're finding this breakdown useful, hit subscribe. We're pushing toward 5,000 subscribers, and every new sub helps the channel. Keep these daily roster reactions rolling. I'll pause here and we'll dig into the Rashee Rice situation next, because that update explains a lot of the receiver strategy and has major ripple effects for the season. All right, let's dive into the Rashee Rice situation, because this is the big headline everyone's talking about, and it directly impacts how the Chiefs built their receiver room. Right before this recording, Adam Schefter reported that the Chiefs are bracing for what looks like a 6-game suspension for Rice, starting right at the beginning of the season. Now, this is a shift from what we thought a few weeks ago. Most assumed the NFL would wait until after his court proceedings, which are scheduled for late September, before handing down a suspension. But if this goes into effect week 1, the team can get it out of the way early, which honestly could be a silver lining. Think about it. If Rice sits weeks 1 through 6, the roster and the coaching staff know exactly what they're dealing with and can plan accordingly. You avoid the middle of the season uncertainty where he's rolling in and out, having to ramp up mid-season. From a fan's perspective, it's frustrating, but it's cleaner. Now, let's talk how this impacts the receivers. The Chiefs kept 8 receivers, but really it's 7 active for the start, because Rice will be unavailable. Names like Xavier Worthy, Marquez Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Jalen Royals, Taquan Thornton, Nico Riho, and Jason Brownlee will fill the reps. Some of these guys, like Thornton, showed flashes late in the preseason with big plays, so this is an opportunity for them to step up and cement their role. It's also worth noting that having this suspension start immediately gives the coaching staff the chance to see who really thrives without Rice in the mix. That could influence how targets are distributed even when he returns. Now, I want to get your take. Do you think it's better for Rice to serve his suspension early and get it over with, or wait until the legal process finishes and possibly miss a chunk of the middle season? Type early or later in the comments. Also, tag one receiver you think will step up in his absence. I'm curious to see who you guys are backing. And if you're liking these updates and want to keep up with roster changes, smash that like button and subscribe. Every sub helps the channel reach our 5,000 goal and keeps you in the loop for all Chiefs news. Once Rice is back, assuming the suspension runs its course, the depth and explosiveness of this receiving unit should be one of the strongest we've seen in years. But until then, it's a test of the supporting cast to keep the offense humming. Now let's break down the other roster surprises, the cuts that raised eyebrows, and the players likely headed to the practice squad or injured reserve. On offense, a few notable names didn't make the initial 53. Running back Carson Steele was released, mainly due to fumbling concerns, but don't be surprised if he lands back on the practice squad. He has the skill set the Chiefs like for depth and special packages. At tight end, Robert Tonyan and Jaquavius Spivey were cut, but Tonyan, as a vested veteran, isn't subject to waivers, so there's a good chance he could be added back. The offensive line carries 10 players, including projected starters like Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Jawan Taylor, with versatile backups ready to cover multiple positions. Jalen Moore is the sixth man who can swing across guard and tackle, giving the Chiefs flexibility if injuries strike. On the defensive side, 9 linemen made the roster, including Chris Jones, Derek Noddy, and George Karlaftis, with Ashton Galati and Malik Herring rounding out the group. Omar Namani Lott could potentially be placed on short-term IR, which would open a roster spot for someone like Robert Tonyan or another veteran return. Linebacker depth looks solid with Nick Bolton, Leo Chenal, Drew Tranquil, Jeffrey Bussey, Cooper McDonald, and Jack Cochran making the cut. Cochran has been a special team standout, showing the value of versatility in locking down a roster spot. Corners are set with 5 players: Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Watson, Christian Fulton, and Josh Williams. Some names like Jacoby Coington and Aziz Hearns were released, but the depth seems capable of handling the rotation. At safety, Shamari Brooks, Brian Cook, and Jaden Hicks lead the group, with Chris E. Roland Wallace showing enough promise in camp to push a veteran out. Specialists remain steady, no surprises there. Harrison Butker, Matthew Wright, and long snapper James Winchester maintain continuity. The takeaway here is that the Chiefs are blending proven talent with young developmental players and some veterans on the bubble who could return via practice squad or IR maneuvers. Now it's your turn. Who do you want to see the Chiefs bring back to the practice squad or IR to contribute later? Drop names in the comments. And if you're enjoying this deep dive and want daily roster updates and hot takes, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any waiver wire action. All right, let's wrap this up with the final take, looking at the roster, the season outlook, and some predictions. Overall, the Chiefs roster has balance, depth, and a mix of proven playmakers with emerging talent. The quarterback room is rock solid with Mahomes leading the charge and Gardner Minshew as a reliable backup. The running back group is versatile, able to sustain the ground game even if injuries pop up. Wide receivers will be tested early with Rashee Rice out, but players like Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Taquan Thornton have a chance to shine and show they belong in the rotation. Tight ends remain anchored by Travis Kelce, with solid support from Noah Gray and Jared Y. Offensive line depth is a huge plus, giving the Chiefs flexibility to protect Mahomes and sustain their rushing attack. Defensively, the line and linebacker core have talent and rotational depth, while the secondary allows for multiple schemes and coverage looks. With specialists steady, The overall roster composition gives confidence entering the regular season. Here's a bold prediction section. 1 optimistic pick. Chiefs offense ranks top 3 in the league once Rice returns. A realistic pick. The team remains the AFC favorite, but injuries test their depth. And AI, cautious pick. Suspensions and roster inexperience could cause early hiccups, but Mahomes' leadership keeps them competitive. I want to challenge you guys. Drop your one bold prediction for the season in the comments. I'll highlight 3 of the best in the next video. Also, quick yes, no. Do you think this roster can get the Chiefs back to the Super Bowl? Vote and explain in the comments. And before we close, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and help us reach 5,000 subscribers. It keeps the daily content coming and keeps you in the loop on all roster moves, suspensions, and game day updates. With that, stay locked into Total Chiefs News. We'll continue breaking down roster updates, player performances, and everything you need to know this season. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.